You're listening to Loughy and Savoca, a fantasy football podcast. What's going on, brother? Good to see you again. Hasn't been long.
It has not been long. I am not fully recovered by any stretch. Our times in Chicago were fantastic. It was great to meet the crew. It was great to meet you. But let's just say that our bodies need some recovery time. I looked in the mirror today. I was like, you look tired.
Yeah, you look gray. Not you, but all of us. It was a phenomenal trip, though, and I was very happy to do it. We got to meet Chris Karen, producer extraordinaire. We got Phil producing with us today as well, so we got a full crew. But, man, let me tell you something. Being in an airport with anxiety the next morning after, hanging out with the crew for 3 days, it does a number on you. I tell you, it's not fun. I just flying home, I'm like, just don't delay my flight. We got in early. That was good. But still, then I had to drive an hour home back from the airport. Got home. It was nice. You see the wife and the daughter and the dog and everything. That's all good. But I'm just thinking, like, the next morning, I knew I wasn't out of the woods yet. So you know what I did? I wake up, and I'm just thinking to my daughter wakes up at 5:30, of course, on Wednesday. Like, this is just going to be hell on earth. Get her off to daycare. And like, the only way I get out of this, because coffee wasn't working, and I have long since ceased the use of any other substance to get my day going. So I'm like, I got to work out, force myself, and crawled into the basement. To get started is the toughest thing in the world, but I will tell you, once you get done a decent workout, even if you're feeling like shit, it definitely does make life a little bit better for the day.
Absolutely. And first of all, you introduced me over the weekend to the term hangxiety. I don't know where I was. It's a great word. The hangover-based anxiety the next day. Absolutely.
What did I say? Thing. What did I do?
Yeah. Do I have to text anyone? Please tell me.
Yeah.
I don't have to. And then compound that with the just natural travel anxiety, flying and all that stuff. Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't get to work out till Thursday, but what do they say? Like, change your state, and that helps you in the long run. But ultimately, it's because I did so many terrible things to my body while I was in Chicago that I need all this recovery. But ultimately, we're back. We're talking football, talk some quarterbacks, and hopefully we can make it through this one okay.
I ordered a cheesesteak pizza from Domino's on Wednesday night. You want to talk about?
I had Domino's last night.
Horrible decision.
It's so bad.
I swear I'm not joking. They put drugs in it. They do.
They might as well.
I crushed 7 of 8 slices to my head. Got a marble cookie. After I did tell you about working out, to my head, ate like 2 pieces of the marble cookie brownie. And I'm just thinking, life is good until I wake up the next morning. And it's just, again, you want to talk about feel worse than a hangover, Matt. Eat a full Domino's to yourself and then wake up the next day.
Oh, it's like a parasite went in. It's horrific.
Yeah, you need antibiotics.
And yet we still continue to order. Tells you all you need.
Yeah. Yeah, talking quarterbacks, though. Happy to have you guys with us, hanging out as always. If you haven't yet, leave us a review, a kind review, preferably. Even if you don't, some people just have a visceral reaction to me telling them that Domino's cheesesteak pizza is delicious. Don't knock it till you tried it. But we're not talking about this. We're talking football. If you like the conversation, leave a review. It helps us out immensely. Subscribe to the channel, whether you're listening in podcast form or on YouTube. And let's get it rocking, man. So we got tiers today. We haven't talked a lot of quarterbacks yet. We've talked a ton about the individual teams, running backs. We'll jump into more receivers and pass catchers shortly, but the quarterback tiers is always an interesting one for me because on one hand, you look at it and you go, all right, quarterbacks don't matter in the sense that you're drafting them in the first round, and if you miss, your life is over, right? And there's always someone usually on the waiver wire if you're playing redraft leagues or even dynasty sometimes. If it's not like a super flex, right, or a 2 quarterback league, you can find someone oftentimes just for a week if you're streaming them. But there are clear tiers here. And if you do land one of those top quarterbacks, specifically, Matt, and this is where I think it's the most fun to have this conversation, specifically one that nobody is really talking about, that nobody's spending a lot of draft capital on, like a Lamar Jackson in that rookie season, or we could go down the list. That is how you can absolutely win your leagues.
Absolutely. And honestly, hats off to the fantasy community at large for making the quarterback position much more interesting. And on the field, we've also seen a changing of what the premium quarterback can give you and your team from a fantasy perspective, kind of altering. I mean, late round quarterback was the one of the biggest topics to come out of the 2010s in fantasy football. But now, with the advent of different roster settings like Superflex, we have best ball drafts where having premium draft capital on the quarterback we've seen is not nearly as bad. Getting gigantic scores on your fantasy team tend to be a good thing if you want to win. So ultimately, getting one of these great quarterbacks, especially one that you don't have to spend absolutely premium fantasy draft capital, man, that is league winning. What's harder these days, I will say, Loughy, is finding that quarterback in the rough, that one in the 15 to 20 range that looks good with, an athletic profile, because people are just much savvier at drafting these days.
They are, but it does happen. It does. I mean, Justin Herbert rookie season.
Yeah. I don't know how you're supposed to know. Well, he was going late because Tyrod Taylor was named the starter. I mean,
right, that's true. And then they tried to kill him.
Yeah, they punctured his lung right before the game.
You're right about that, though. I forgot. Yeah, you're right.
So, yeah, that changed. But still, I mean, it says maybe we should be, a little more advantageous taking chances, especially if we're talking best ball on a player like Kenny Pickett. These top 10 and top 20 picks, I know Pickett was a little bit later in the draft, they tend to get opportunities at some point in their rookie season. Again, I just look at this top 13, 14 quarterbacks and I go, man, without injury, like, how do any of these players fail? We are just in such a good place at the top tier of the quarterback position.
Yeah, no question. I'll say, though, we're going to go through all the tiers, but there is unquestionably a lot of value in being able to identify quarterbacks off of the waiver in those type of situations like a Justin Herbert. I mean, like actual league winning upside as well. I think one of the best examples in recent memory is Jalen Hurts, right? Like Jalen Hurts over the final 4 weeks, final 4 or 5 weeks of his rookie season, or maybe longer, where Carson Wentz was benched and Jalen Hurts comes in and legitimately won people their championships. And Lamar Jackson in that season where he came in for, was it still Flacco?
Yeah. Lamar Jackson came in at the end of that season with Flacco, and that's that crazy playoff game against the Chargers. But yeah, Hurts is a great example. 37 fantasy points against Arizona in his first start. He finished QB1, QB12, QB18, and that was in week 17. So most people weren't playing there. But yeah, that's how you win leagues, is you get free access to QB12 and above upside. So it's hard to find. We're gonna take our picks here once we get into those mid tiers. But these number one guys, don't forget about their 30 to 40 point upside, especially these rushers that they can give you. And points are good on your fantasy team.
All right, so let's get into the top tier. But first, let me just ask you the very simplest question here, and I think one that many people are wondering themselves. Are you willing to spend the, early third round draft capital on Josh Allen? Do you want to spend a third or a fourth or a fifth on guys like Herbert and Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray? Are you willing to, are you willing to tether your team to a quarterback like this and forego one of the skill players in those rounds?
At ADP, the answer for me in a regular fantasy league is almost always no. We've always talked about reading the draft room, and if a player falls well below ADP, obviously you're going to take chances. But I will add one additional caveat. If you feel like your level of knowledge is much higher than the rest of your league mates, and you want to take safety in the early rounds because you can mine value much better than your league mates, and you know that room, and you can outpace them, that's fine, because they're going to score points for you. It's going to be fine. But from a value-based drafting position, it is the suboptimal choice unless they fall below ADP. I will say it's kind of an interesting year this year, because in the 5th or 6th round, we still have QB1 overall upside and a lot of uncertainty at the skill positions. And I think the trade-off is a lot easier at that point in the draft than, say, the 3rd or 4th.
I mean, Josh Allen is pretty much it, barring an injury or a suspension or, something unforeseen. I don't see how in that offense that he fails. Pass first offense. I still like the running back. I like the backfield. We know, both of us do. But when you look at the weapons, I mean, Gabe Davis, the rise to, of course, not stardom, but what an insane 4-touchdown game we saw in the postseason. You have Stephon Diggs still. You have Dawson Knox. Like, they have Jamison Crowder now. They have a lot of options in that passing game. And Josh Allen's one of the best rushing quarterbacks in the league, will take off, will get goal line carries. So when I look at like him or Justin Herbert, who I love Justin Herbert as well, and it isn't to say that he doesn't have any rushing upside, and then Patrick Mahomes, who loses Tyreek Hill, but we know that he's still a spectacular player. And shit, I don't know. If I am looking to one of these guys, and then you have Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray rounding out the 4 and 5, if I'm going to spend top 5 round draft capital, top 4 round draft capital on these guys, give me the guy with elite rushing upside who can salvage any poor performance through the air.
So you're saying you would rather take Josh Allen?
I would rather take Allen, but honestly, I'd rather take Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray. As much as I love Josh Allen, if I can get a skill player, and this has just kind of always been the way that I've done it. So I'm not saying it's right, but if I can save myself 2 rounds and still get a guy like Lamar Jackson, whose offensive line should be much improved this year with the injuries that we saw last year, or Kyler Murray, who might not be able to see above the line of scrimmage, but can still run like crazy, or even a Jalen Hurts who just added A.J. Brown to the offense. Yeah, I think while Josh Allen, I'm not going to fault anyone for drafting him there in the mid-3rd round. There's so much rushing upside in like the 4 through 6 guys as well. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, bottom line is unless there are specific circumstances that happen in a draft, I'm probably not having Josh Allen as my 1 quarterback in my main league this year. And I kind of feel the exact same way, Loughy. I think the way that you look for quarterback 1 overall upside, the percentage chances on a weekly basis of finding that QB 1 overall drop precipitously after that Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts tier. Because I think you're going to have great weeks out of Russell Wilson, Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, Matthew Stafford, of course, had a career year last year, but I do think you're going to see a little bit more floor plays from them than ceiling performances. And so if you're chasing ceiling weeks, I do think there's a huge drop-off at that point. So in tier 1, I actually have Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray 1 point ahead of positional ADP so that I can actually be a little bit advantageous. Now, leaning a little bit towards best ball because I am doing multiple drafts, but I'm feeling the same exact way. I want that rushing upside, and they're both great passers, well above average at the very least.
Yeah. I mean, one of the ways to look at it too is, can a pure passing quarterback be the number 1? Yeah, but it's
like 2018 Patrick Mahomes season. They got to throw 50 touchdowns.
Exactly.
They have to be MVP level good from a touchdown rate standpoint.
Exactly. But even in 2020, Aaron Rodgers, he did win the MVP again, right? He did win the MVP. I think
he won it.
Yeah. 48 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, and he was still the QB3. Like, that's nuts. Kyler Murray threw 22 fewer touchdowns than Aaron Rodgers that year. He threw 26 touchdowns and finished with 3 more fantasy points. So it's doable. I mean, you could definitely top 3 it, right? I mean, and Rodgers did have 3 rushing touchdowns that year, but they were basically all, not from far out. Last year, Tom Brady was the QB3. He threw 43 touchdowns and passed for 5,300 yards. And still Josh Allen was the number 1. Justin Herbert, to his credit, was the QB2. He did finish with 300 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. So it's not like he doesn't have any upside on the ground. And I like that. And maybe they open it up a little bit more this year. I don't see why they'd have to. But I think the opportunity for a QB1 finish with the actual guys that have the legs is just far more likely than it is with these pure passers, even if they throw for 40 plus touchdowns.
Add the second part too, with players who don't use their legs at all, the bottom can actually accidentally fall out. I look at a player like Derek Carr last year, who was really hurt by a low touchdown rate. He's pretty immobile in the pocket. He was 5th in the NFL in total passing yards, but because he's 13th in the NFL in total passing touchdowns, under a 4% touchdown rate, touchdown passes by pass attempts, he's at 16th in fantasy points per game. If you're drafting someone who is at QB 8, 9, and they don't really have a lot of rushing upside, and their touchdown rate falls below what you think it's going to be, that's how you run into trouble and you draft people ahead of where you actually should. We can't always predict touchdown rates falling, from year to year, but it is pretty unstable except for the very, very best. I'd rather take the floor and ceiling approach by getting a rushing quarterback.
Yeah, look, it's a good point. And it doesn't even mean that they have to be on a dysfunctional offense. It could just be that there's a lot of rushing touchdowns too. We've seen that. We've seen that plenty of times. With tier 1, I think it's pretty cut and dry. If you want to spend on Josh Allen, go for it. I don't think you have to. It's not the approach that I like to take. There are a lot of really good quarterbacks in the league right now that we can pick from. And that's where tier 2 to me is so interesting once you get to guys like Jalen Hurts and Burrow. And I think Jalen Hurts could end up being a tier 1 guy by the end of this season, which is remarkable because he's not even that good.
Right? We're not even sure if he's a great real life quarterback. And I will say, in terms of all the top quarterbacks, there is only one where there's actually some probability of him being benched. I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't. But it's 0 for the other quarterbacks in the top 10, and it is not 0 for Jalen Hurts. But again, it comes down to immense rushing upside. We talked about Hurts basically since the moment he took over. He was serving as a top 12 quarterback because he gives us that rushing floor and ceiling. Last year, the passing game wasn't that pretty. 19th in QBR, 29th in true passer rating, 16th in expected points added. But I've already talked about the bullish case for Jalen Hurts. I'm a believer in him taking the superstar leap this year. But the downside absolutely is there. Bottom line is, like, when you draft your quarterback in your one team, you talk about risk of ruin. There is a small amount there. In best ball, though, man, I'm taking chances on Jalen Hurts in this passing offense. It's kind of that simple. There are safer picks in this QB2, this tier 2 of the QB position. You can take Tom Brady, Dak Prescott, Matthew Stafford, and you're pretty locked in for a top 12 season.
Yeah. So all right. So the tiers are yours, right? I'm looking at the run sheet now, just so people. I'm going over and I agree with Matt on most of these. The one that I have a bit of an issue with, and I get why you're doing it. I do. I understand it. But I truly cannot shit on Tom Brady until this guy is in diapers. Like, I'm talking about like all, senior citizen diapers. Like, cannot hold in your bodily fluids anymore because I don't, what is it? Incontinent, right? I think
incontinent. Yeah.
Incontinent and consonant. I don't know. One of those. You guys know what I think I've explained it well enough. It's every year we're going back several years now to people being like, nope, I'm out on Brady. It's got to catch up with it. When are we going to, and you have him at 10, by the way, which I don't think is unreasonable. I'm just not putting him above Trey Lance. And yeah, I just talked about rushing upside, but we talked about, the upside with Justin Fields last year. And that was a colossal disaster. I'm still considering Trey Lance, not a rookie, but in terms of, starter, we still haven't seen what he can do week over week. Tom Brady was the QB3 last year, right? And he doesn't rush. But that's what's so remarkable about this guy. 43 touchdowns, 5,300 yards. He attempted 719 passes. 719 pass attempts for Tom Brady. Now you're getting, it looks like, some good news on Chris Godwin. You still have Mike Evans. They're still going. Tom Brady can figure out ways to get guys involved. We've seen that time and time again. I'm not saying the offense is going to be maybe as explosive as last year, but how am I supposed to look at Tom Brady and be like, other than just pure speculation and what we've seen with the aging curve over, with other players, how am I supposed to look at him after what he does every year, having another MVP style season last year and being like, yeah, this is the year he sucks?
Yeah, the drop off happens quick. That's the scary part, right? But you're exactly right. Number one in pass attempts, number one in deep ball attempts, number one in red zone attempts, number one in team pass plays per game, number one in pace of play, number one in passing touchdowns. The guy's absolutely insane from an efficiency standpoint. And yes, the personnel is worse than 2021. No doubt about it. Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and Rob Gronkowski are an absolutely elite unit of receiving core. And he doesn't have that this year. We've seen Brady put up huge numbers with subpar passing games in New England for years. And I still think this Tampa Bay receiving core is actually a little bit sneaky deep. We'll see if they sign a veteran here, but they actually like a lot of these younger players, especially when we're talking about doing multiple drafts like best ball. There's all these late round flyers that really could get on the field for Tom Brady from week one and carve out a role here. Tyler Johnson, he had a track star, Cyril Grayson, who's absolutely free in drafts. He got injured at the end of the season, but he had like a long touchdown against the Saints to end the year. Scotty Miller's still there. They have some pieces that they actually think that they can turn into solid options on top of Evans, Gage, and Godwin when he's healthy. And, I'm actually looking at this. I have it listed by ADP, and I created tiers from there. The person I'm furthest ahead within this tier in my rankings, it's Tom Brady.
All right. And I think I agree with you on the depth here. First of all, it looks like Chris Godwin will be back by week one if Leonard Fournette doesn't eat him before he gets on the field.
It's a possibility. I didn't put that in the models yet, man. We gotta. It's definitely.
I'd be worried. I kid. I love Leonard Fournette this season, and I actually think he's going underdrafted if he gets the weight. Apparently, they were pissed off about the weight though. Like they were not happy about.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Like as coaches or front office.
He came into camp at, what was he, like 300?
I think he was in Jacksonville, you mean?
What?
I think he was 260, he said.
Okay, 260. So I exaggerated a little bit, but it was clearly to a point where the alarm bells went off, is what I'm saying. Leonard Fournette was a good pass catcher too last year. Tom Brady loved it. He came back to Tampa as a free agent because Tom Brady called him while Fournette was coincidentally visiting the Patriots. And he's like, what's your ass doing up there? That's actually what he said. He's like, what's your ass doing up there? He told him, and then days later, he signed back with the Bucs. Brady knows his guys, right? Brady's loyal almost to a fault with certain players. Leonard Fournette, and I'm assuming he'll be fine by the season starts. I'm really not worried about that. This was mini camp, Matt, right? So this was like early June?
Yeah, this was their first, OTAs, their first time all showing up for the season.
Yeah, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, one of the best end zone guys in the league, and one of the best end zone threats, red zone threats. And then, how bad is Russell Gage as a wide receiver 3?
Oh, he's not bad at all. He's not bad at all. I think he's a near lock to get 100 targets, even if Chris Godwin is fully healthy to begin the season. Their wide receiver 3 last year, Antonio Brown, was incredibly productive. You wanted him on your team. In fact, I believe at one point on a per game basis, they were all in the top 15 in fantasy points per game last season. There's a couple interesting scenarios here that I think you can play out where Tom Brady elevates one of these mid-tier wide receivers to, the new Wes Welker, the new Julian Edelman role that absolutely could be Gage or Scotty Miller. And also, we got to talk about the scenario of Leonard Fournette. While I think I'm on the same page as you, that I think he's a good value, he could fall on his face here. One of the most interesting things in the range of outcomes for the Bucs this year is, what if Rachaad White is undeniably the best running back on the squad, picked in the later parts of the 3rd round? I know that's not fantastic draft capital for day 2, but this guy comps out on Player Profiler to David Johnson, an 88th percentile college dominator, a 98th percentile college target share. He had over 1,000 yards last year in his final year in college, came out as a junior. looks really solid in the passing game. 6', 214. I'm not saying that they're going to trust Tom Brady in the backfield with a rookie all the time, but what if he's just the best one out there?
So it's definitely possible, but I think the biggest issue is he has really struggled in pass blocking. And if you're Tom Brady and your running back has no idea, it can't protect you,
he'll ride the pine. You're right. If that's the case, yep, he'll sit.
But they clearly drafted him in the 3rd round for a reason. You know, I mean, the amount of struggles they had trying to throw the ball to guys like Ronald Jones. Remember, he just dropped everything. And Leonard Fournette, oddly enough, wasn't bad there, and Brady seemed to like him. Leonard Fournette, in the games he played last year, or no, was it through the first, 13 weeks? I forget when he went down with an injury, right? He missed like 2 weeks. But up until that, I think he missed a few weeks to close out the season, as a matter of fact. Up until that, let's say like week 15 or 16, Leonard Fournette led the entire league in targets among running backs.
Wow.
Think about that.
He was top 5 in expected fantasy points per game. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And pretty easy value at this point, considering the expected volume to start the season.
I really do want to know, though, and this was kind of, Brady talk was kind of a way to segue into the guy that you have right above him is Trey Lance. I mean, what confidence do you have in Trey Lance, not just being good, right? But if you are going to draft Trey Lance, where are you comfortable taking a guy who is going right now, 7th round?
So I think this is a best ball ADP influencing others ADP situation with Trey Lance. Because when you're talking about taking down a tournament and talking about capturing league winning upside, like we talk about on the Stokastic Best Ball channel all the time, then Trey Lance makes a lot of sense to take at or around ADP, because the way he gets to his ceiling score, his number 1 overall QB score, is by having a fantastic rushing season. If you are talking about your one home league, your waiver wire league, from a safety standpoint, this is really hard, man. Like, someone might end up looking really smart in your league, but there's a whole lot of luck and speculation involved here. This is a great offense, a great coaching staff, and an offense that expects to be one of the best in the league. They have high hopes for Trey Lance. Easy as that. Yeah, but sure. It doesn't mean he's going to get there. We don't know. Similar to the argument about Jalen Hurts, we don't know what he's like from a real-life quarterback standpoint yet.
It's a unique situation because this is a team that won a playoff game last year, right?
Yeah.
It drafted him 3rd overall, won a playoff game.
They were in the NFC Championship game.
Right. Oh, wait, did they win 2 playoff games?
They beat Dallas and they beat Green Bay. They did. They beat Green Bay.
Shit, you're right. I was thinking of the Green Bay game where Aaron Rodgers just completely fell apart. And yeah, right. I forgot they beat Dallas too. You're right. They were in the NFC Championship game. I was thinking it was LA and Tampa, but LA beat Tampa the prior week in that huge comeback. You're right. Yeah. So this isn't a team that's throwing out a young quarterback and kind of going, let's see what he can do. Now, this isn't any of that. They're not in rebuild mode. They're in win right now mode. And that's what makes it interesting to me. Plus, they like to run the football. But he's smack dab in the middle of tier 2 for you. You have Hurts to kick off tier 2. Like I said, if all things go well for Hurts, you could see him, borderline tier 1, which is kind of where you have him. But I'm 100% in agreement with you. He is the one guy in the top 10 or so, really top 12, that actually could probably go further than that has real potential to either be incredible or not be on the field at all. Then you have Burrow, Wilson, Lance, Tom Brady, Dak Prescott, and Matthew Stafford. Of these guys, are there any that you look at and go, based on their ADP, based on both the floor and the ceiling, I love them where they're being drafted, and I intend on having a lot of them?
It's probably, in this tier specifically, it's honestly Brady for me. I am going with Brady and Russell Wilson as a secondary option, but Brady's the one, if you look at my ranks versus positional ADP, that I'm the furthest ahead on. I actually am a bit lower than I want to be on Trey Lance based on the way that my projections ran out. But again, that's because the range of outcomes is so high. So it really comes down to what type of fantasy league are you talking about with Trey Lance. But if you're talking about just one fantasy league, your home league, the water cooler league, Brady's number one for me. Russell Wilson, and then an honorable mention to Dak Prescott, who I think could rush more a year more removed from that ankle injury.
And there are some leagues out there that still do 6-point passing touchdowns. If that's the case, Tom Brady should be way up your board.
Absolutely.
Way up. What about last one in this tier? I think we both like Joe Burrow, right? We can't talk about every single player. Matthew Stafford has Cooper Kupp and Allen Robinson now. That's nice. Russell Wilson, new situation, new offense, strong backfield, pretty decent offensive line. And then you have, in an odd way, all of these unproven wide receivers. Like, yeah, Cortland Sutton in year 2 had a nice 1,000-yard campaign, never played with a good quarterback, though. Then week 1 of year 3 tears his ACL, comes back. Last year, the just quarterbacking was so bad.
Awful, just awful.
So bad. Like, look how many deep ball attempts he had or targets he had, and look how many were catchable. It's unbelievable. It was so bad. And then you have Jerry Jeudy, another guy they drafted early. Both of these guys, relatively high draft picks for both of them. Both of them have all of the talent in the world, all of the upside in the world. Can Russell Wilson unlock that? And if he does, what type of season are we looking at for a guy like Russ?
This is so fun, right? Because again, we're talking about different kinds of drafts. Best ball, Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos are awesome to bet on. And honestly, I think we have a great season in store for us. If you had to ask me my one prediction, the shootout potential from a week-to-week standpoint in this AFC West, going either against the Chiefs, the Raiders, or the Chargers.
Wow. That's going to be fun.
That is going to be so fun. So the shootout potential, just considering the teams he's playing against, not to mention the fact that, exactly like you said, this receiving core can play. You said Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. What about Tim Patrick?
Tim Patrick, sure.
6'4", 208, elite catch radius, has shown some flash here. KJ Hamler, second-round draft capital, super fast. These are kinds of players that can absolutely have career years with Russell Wilson coming in here. The quality of target is about to improve so much. Now, I think savvy drafters understand the upside, and that's why Best Ball ADP has him around pick 77 currently. I think he ends up going a little bit later there in most home leagues. I think you can probably get him 85, 90. I think you can wait on one of these players. I love Russell Wilson. I like him more, actually, than Joe Burrow. I worry about some regression for the Cincinnati Bengals team. Obviously, Chase, Higgins, Burrow, all elite talents, but this division, if you're not counting out the AFC West as an elite division, I think the AFC North, even with the QB changes happening, still one of the best in the league, and there could be some change over there. Hey, we've been talking all show long about Underdog Fantasy, truly the best place to play best ball fantasy football this season. They've got so many great tournaments over there. The Best Ball Mania 3 tournament, just $25 to entry, $2 million to first place, $1 million to the regular season champion, and second place in the playoffs as well. They've had puppy tournaments all summer long with just a $5 entry. And promo code Stokastic can get you a ton of free stuff right now. First of all, you can double your first deposit up to $100. And we are sweetening the deal over at Stokastic.com. When you sign up over at Underdog, use that promo code Stokastic. You can also get a free access to our Stokastic Best Ball and Fantasy Football Draft Kit. We've got projections, rankings, expert consensus rankings, values, sleepers, busts, breakout. We got everything for you. Check it out, Underdog Fantasy, promo code Stokastic.
Hey, subscribe to the show if you haven't done so yet. Leave us a review. Appreciate it. Preferably 5 stars. We'll love you forever. And subscribe to the channel if you're listening to YouTube. Hit thumbs up, subscribe, all that good shit. Tier 3, not a lot going on here. You got Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers. I love Aaron Rodgers, but they lost Devontae Adams and Marquez Valdes-Scantling. You have a rookie in Watson. We talked about this last week when we were discussing the backfield. Does this become not to say they're going to like relegate Aaron Rodgers to 20 pass attempts per game. Don't get crazy here, but if Allen Lazard is your number one, yeah, and you're working with a lot of dump offs and such to your running backs, what does that do for like? I think you're right in putting him in this tier. I wouldn't be surprised if they still have a functional offense and he finishes, middle of the league.
Is this possibly a ships in the night tier with Derek Carr on his way up into an elite or borderline elite season if his touchdown rate goes up from that 3.7% it was last year, whereas Aaron Rodgers could see a huge drop-off in production if his touchdown rate goes down from that 7.0 rate that it was in 2021. Aaron Rodgers, the best case scenario for him, to be honest, is Allen Lazard or Christian Watson are a star in the making, and we just don't know it yet because we haven't seen it on the field.
Right.
But if Lazard and Watson are middling and Aaron Jones is kind of your first option in the passing game, they're just going to relegate a little bit this MVP talent to a game manager. Now, he'll still take his deep shots. He'll still go for it in the end zone. He could still replicate that 37 touchdown performance he had last year. But the rushing upside isn't nearly the same as it used to be. He's going to be 39 years old this season. We know quarterbacks can play later into their 40s. Brady is showing us. But this is one where I get concerned. If that touchdown rate goes down, he was 10th in passing yards, not super elite. This could be bad. You could end up with the QB 17, even if he's healthy all season.
Man, imagine the whole ships passing in the night thing and Derek Carr, they pass it, and Derek Carr, though, he's got Rodgers' old boy in tow, Devontae Adams. My God. I mean, what an upgrade. Are you kidding me? Like Darren Waller, sure, he's good, but you saw last year, you can't Darren Waller as the number one option, force feeding him didn't work. We saw that. Man. You're right. What if Derek Carr ends up being a top 10 quarterback this season? Hunter Renfrow, Devontae Adams, Darren Waller. I'm not completely down on Darren Waller. I think as far as just the overall functionality or efficiency of the offense, it's going to help a ton for Darren Waller's efficiency. As far as volume goes, that's a lot different. So I get why he's fallen down the draft boards. And I thought he was a little overdrafted last year as well. People were taking him, second round, and that started to get a little strange. But yeah, Derek Carr, the upside that you have now in this offense with a top 5 tight end, a top 5 wide receiver, some might say the best in the league, but let's say top 5, keep it conservative here. And then a guy in Hunter Renfrow. I mean, come on. The season that he put up last year, you can't ask for a better possession receiver when you've got Darren Waller and then Devontae Adams on the outside.
Absolutely. And it's weird to say, hey, we expect you to improve your touchdown rate by 30%, Derek Carr.
Yeah.
23 touchdowns last year. You got to get to 30 with this offense.
You have to.
You got to get to 30 touchdowns. And honestly, 40 should be in the range of outcomes for this team. And what I do like is the possibility of a condensed target share here. They're not going to use DeMarcus Robinson, Matt Collins, Keelan Cole, Tyron Johnson. They have Javon Wims. Like these are the classic kind of win sprint players. Maybe I'm wrong about their talent overall, and there might be one that even starts in 3 wide receiver sets, but Adams, Renfrow, and Waller need to be dominant this year in the red zone and outside. This team has arguably the best trio receiving core in the league. Derek Carr, you need to improve in the touchdown category.
Devontae Adams catches everything. As long as it's in the same zip code, he's going to catch it. He caught touchdowns on 7 of his 10 targets inside the 10 last year. 70% of them. He caught touchdowns 10 on 27 targets just in the red zone alone last year. The guy's efficiency inside the 10, specifically inside the 5. I know that Aaron Rodgers is, threading needles, but if you're Derek Carr, just put it around him. And you're going to – Derek Carr is one of those guys that – I love stacks for best ball for the Raiders. Truly love these stacks. But even just Derek Carr, if you're getting the Derek Carr and you're somebody that's, let's say, because I know, and I know you and I will do this plenty in redraft leagues. Just wait on a quarterback. You're like, hey, there's too many good skill players here. I don't want to pass up on this because I know I can get a starting caliber quarterback in the 10th. I don't think I can get a every week starting caliber wide receiver or running back in the 10th without, monumental risk. So if Derek Carr with an ADP of 107 right now, 107, so you're talking like, I think in redraft leagues, you get him in double-digit rounds. I do. How do you not feel good about that? And you laid it out perfectly. 30 touchdowns, yeah. Could he? I don't want to get crazy with 40, but with what he has, you could be looking at a guy that you're drafting in the 10th round as a starter that you have no intentions of ever taking out of your lineup.
I was a year early. I was all over Derek Carr last year, but it's one of those things where touchdowns are hard to predict. As a guy who loves to look at stats all the time, I know that. It's much easier to predict some other stats in the NFL, but touchdowns win us leagues. They win us weeks, and Derek Carr is one who's just ripe for having way more touchdowns at one of the most important positions. We have to take advantage of it. We got to be on that up ramp year, not just take advantage of last year's league winners in their higher ADP. I like this tier 4 though. There's going to be one in here that I think makes it easily, but in best ball drafts, I have to say that I am taking chances here, even though none of them feel really good. That's kind of why I made this mini tier 3 of just 2 players, because after this, the feeling about all these players gets really different for me. The upside's still there. Like player like Kirk Cousins, kind of like him this year. How about you?
Yeah, I don't mind Cousins at all. One quick thing before we move on is the only thing I wanted to say, last thing on the Packers, is I would much rather take shots on their wide receivers than on Aaron Rodgers this year, because Aaron Rodgers could have a modest year, but one of his receivers could still have a huge year. So if it's Lazard or Christian Watson, personally, I like Lazard because I know Aaron Rodgers is also one of those guys that has his guys. Like, he has his guys. It doesn't mean that he can't move on to a new one yet, right? But Devontae Adams, Jordy Nelson, you could go back as long as you want to find guys that he just loves them and gets the ball to them as much as possible. He's spoken glowingly about Allen Lazard, and I don't think it was ever Lazard's fault that he wasn't super heavily involved. When you have a guy like Devontae Adams, you'd be idiotic not to throw him the ball 30% of your pass attempts. So just wanted to say that. I think there's value in these Packers wide receiver corps, because when you have uncertainty, it's going to breed opportunity. All right.
I wanted to talk about Cousins too. I'm just going to say I'm on Team Watson. I'm taking
You're
chances
Watson.
there.
Okay.
Yeah. One of us will be right. Hopefully one of us will be right.
Listen, both of them could have decent seasons.
It is true. But I kind of agree with you that Rodgers tends to lock onto his guys.
He does.
Which one is going to take the reins there?
Yeah, right. Based on ADP, though, both of them could have plenty of startable weeks. Because if neither of them have a 30% target share, Devontae Adams was second in the league in target share behind only Cooper Kupp last year. I don't imagine you're going to see 30% to either of those guys. So, if you're like 25 and 22, crazier things have happened.
No,
anyway,
yeah.
Kirk Cousins, you love the Vikings this year.
I am. I think that a change of philosophy is kind of all they needed. I think they have elite talent. I like Irv Smith coming back this year to add to Adam Thielen, and another one that you could argue as a top receiver in the league. We'll say top 5, just to be nice to the others, Justin Jefferson. I mean, this is a team that I believe should have already taken the next step. And I think they were a little bit stuck in the past with their overall offensive philosophy. And they're in a division that is kind of ripe for upheaval a little bit. Even the Packers have some holes this year, as we've just finished talking about. The Bears and Lions seem like they're a year or more away. And so I think this team could overperform expectations, both in fantasy and in real life. I think this team has some sneaky potential to go deep into the playoffs, and it's probably on Kirk Cousins' back if that happens.
I think you accidentally left him off the list here, unless I don't see it.
Oh, yeah, he's right before Fields.
Okay, so you have him at the top of tier 4.
Yes.
Okay, because tier 3 was very small, just a pair, Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got Cousins, Fields, Tua Tagovailoa. That's an interesting one to me. Trevor Lawrence, Jameis Winston, Matt Ryan, and Daniel Jones. You got old DJ and you got Danny Dimes in tier 4.
This is the one where I've already waited long enough. And if this is my quarterback 1, I need to think about the rest of my roster very seriously because there's certainly upside here, right? We talked about Cousins. Fields and Trevor Lawrence were elite talents, and we expect them to take second-year leaps. Tua, I mean, they spent a whole lot trying to get this Miami offense in the place they want it to be to unlock Tua Tagovailoa. And same with Jameis Winston. Chris Olave, Jarvis Landry, Michael Thomas is really, really different than the receiving core they were trotting out in 2021. The last two, even, they're kind of unsexy picks, but Matt Ryan has gotten nothing but glowing reviews since he's stepped in the door in Indianapolis, and they expect much more out of that team than the Carson Wentz-led team of 2021. And then Daniel Jones at QB 21 in quarterback ADP right now. He is the last rushing option that I see that is going to start the full year or is expected to start the full year. So it's really about his rushing ability than his ability to possibly reach the top 12 and upside. I think Daniel Jones, unless I'm really wrong about how Brian Daboll can change this offense in year 1, I think he's the riskiest but an understandable pick at QB 21.
I think this tier should be called unmitigated disaster or glorious success. Outside of like Matt Ryan and Kirk Cousins, who are, I think, we have a pretty good idea of what we're getting from them. Trevor Lawrence, we still don't know. We still don't know with Daniel Jones. We still don't know with Justin Fields. He was horrible last year. And granted, look, new coach, Matt Nagy's gone. The offense should be run competently. I'm sure. I get all that. Hopefully the offensive line is better because he was sacked an unbelievable amount of times. Tua, you have Tyreek Hill. You have Jalen Waddle. They have good options there, but so many of them have massive question marks. I think this is a really intriguing tier to get heavy with on like in best ball stacks. Matt Ryan for me is one of them. You go from a team that had a horrible run game last year, a bad offensive line. He was sacked like the third most times in the league. You had no Calvin Ridley. Julio Jones was gone. You had a rookie tight end in Kyle Pitts that he still got to 1,000 yards. Matt Ryan all he's done is produce top 5 wide receivers. That's a top 5, top 6, top 7, I should say, over the years. That's
Can
all
I pause
he
you
is.
there real quick? Because I think Matt Ryan, Michael Pittman is one of the absolute best value stacks you can make in your regular fantasy leagues, because it's
in regular fantasy leagues. Okay,
it's super cheap. We know who the number 1 option is in that offense. We think they're going to be very good. Yes, they run plenty, but Matt Ryan at QB 20, and you usually can get Pittman in the middle of the 3rd round. That's an easy stack, and you're probably going to get an easy wide receiver 1 out of it. So why not add on that positive correlation?
Yeah, and not only that, in best ball, you can still take shots on some of these secondary options in this offense.
Absolutely.
Right? Like I don't know. I don't know what you're going to get out of Paris Campbell. And obviously he has to stay healthy, but he's one of those guys where he was a 2nd round pick, I believe. I believe Paris Campbell was also a 2nd round pick. They grabbed Alec Pierce. If they're good, they can support 2 guys, and in best ball, you're getting them at an insane discount. Like this could be your secondary stack in best ball. You wouldn't even have to draft this as your first stack. So there's a lot of things to do with this one. With Miami though, with Tua, it's another one of these instances where it's like, do you want the pass catchers or do you want the quarterback? I don't personally think that every team, if you like pass catchers, that you have to love the quarterback too.
I think that's fair. There should be some balance, right? Some correlation. Like if we like the receiving core so much in terms of ADP, then there should be a relative movement of course, the quarterback. And I think we naturally see that occur here. But I think that's what's pushed Tua Tagovailoa to this spot. It's not necessarily his play on the field. It's that how can he fail as bad, or how can he be as middling with Tyreek Hill, with the way Jalen Waddle played, with Mike Gesicki, with Cedric Wilson, a sneaky ad, and a new coaching staff in Mike McDaniel. What if this team is still rush first like the 49ers have been for years, and the volume is limited? I think it's very sneaky to say, well, Tyreek Hill's going to get his, but overall, this offense is just trying to be efficient rather than voluminous. So I think Tua is really, really risky just thinking of him individually. Now, if you're talking best ball stacks, absolutely take your chances. And, that's the way I'm playing this. I'm probably not getting him in my redraft leagues.
And by the way, just to be clear, I didn't mean liking the whole receiving core. I'm saying, like, if you're picking and choosing from some guys you really like, it doesn't mean that you have to love the quarterback in a spot like this. But yeah, if you love, several players, then of course there's going to be a lot of correlation there. The only other guy in this tier, we're up against it. We got like 5 minutes, which is fine because I think we can rip through these final few tier 6. If there's a couple guys, here's what we'll do after we get to this last guy in tier 4. I want to just get your opinion on, are any of these guys potential diamonds in the rough? I don't think it'll take long because there aren't a ton of them there. Mm-hmm. But are any of these guys players that with the last few picks of the draft, maybe in best ball or in a super flex league or 2-quarterback league, you can wait to get your second quarterback. That'll be helpful. But Jameis Winston, last year, before the injury, insanely efficient. Just unsustainably efficient. You could go back and look at his numbers in the red zone. They were insane. That never happened again. But he seemed to be a lot less. He was a lot less prone to make bad decisions, as we saw in Tampa Bay. Now you have Michael Thomas, who it looks like, who knows at this point, but it looks like he should be good to go. You have Chris Olave, they drafted 11th overall, and they bring in Jarvis Landry, and who knows what Alvin Kamara's status is, could be suspended for 6 games. You went from a team last year that had no capable wide receivers whatsoever to one now that has a first round, and we've seen how rookie first rounders are performing in recent seasons. Michael Thomas could be back, and Jarvis Landry, one of the better slot guys in the league, plus arguably the best pass-catching running back when he's on the field. Can Jameis Winston have a big season this year?
Absolutely. But you know what? What's really funny is he used to have this reputation as being super volatile, and we saw him trying to be more conservative when he was on the field last year for the Saints. But listen to these QB finishes. QB 4 in week 1. Then he was QB 26, 25, 26. Then he's QB 5. QB 16, and then he gets hurt. So in my opinion,
was the week 1 where he threw like 4 touchdowns on 12 passes or something?
5 passing touchdowns on 20 attempts.
Yeah,
very typical 25% touchdown rate. Yeah. So I think the volatility is still there for this volatile player. His receiving core is way improved. With Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, Jameis Winston was putting up number 1 weeks at the top of that volatility wave. So can he put together a full season? Man, I don't know. But can he get you number 1 weeks and maybe get you some trade value or spike weeks in best ball? Absolutely. That's why he belongs in this tier.
Real quick. Yes or no on Michael Thomas?
I'm out.
You're out. Okay. Maybe next week we'll talk about some risky players. Have some fun with that.
That sounds good.
Always a good conversation because some of them can win your leagues. Others can bury you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that I have room for, it's another one where I have room for 1, right? And in risk means something totally different in the double-digit rounds than it does in the early rounds. So I think that'll be fun to dig into.
No doubt. Tier 5. Mac Jones, Deshaun Watson, you have appropriately put an asterisk next to his name. An asterisk next to his name. Zach Wilson, Ryan Tannehill, who QB 12 last year because the guy, all he does is score rushing touchdowns. It's crazy. He had 7 more. Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, Carson Wentz, Davis Mills, Marcus Mariota. Okay, so that's sorry, not Marcus Mariota. That's tier 5. Tier 6, Mariota, Trubisky, Garoppolo. Again, asterisk. We understand why. Desmond Ridder. Matt does his due diligence. He doesn't leave anybody out here. Drew Lock and Jacoby Brissett. I'm going to give you one guy, and then I want one guy from you out of these tiers that you think could be someone that, I don't want to say wins your leagues, but could be viable. For me, Baker Mayfield. And as wild as it sounds, they don't really, you look at the pass catching or the how often they throw to receivers in Cleveland. Understandably, you got Kareem Hunt that saw some of that work for sure. But at the same time, you might just see Christian McCaffrey. You want to talk about arguably the best pass catching back in the league? Christian McCaffrey isn't just like 5 yards here, 3 yards here, 7 yards here, like Fournette when he was in Jacksonville. Christian McCaffrey can actually bolster a quarterback's passing or passing work and really help cushion those fantasy points. But then you have a guy like DJ Moore. When's he played with good quarterbacking? I still think Baker Mayfield's an upgrade from Sam Darnold. I don't think he's terrible. I don't think what I'm saying is I don't think he goes into a situation. Oh, and really last year they didn't have a lot of weapons in Cleveland. Come on.
Everyone was hurt.
Everyone was hurt. Yeah. And then Beckham was gone. I think there are enough weapons here in Carolina to where you could actually see Baker Mayfield put up a like 15 to 17 season. I'm not going crazy. He doesn't have rushing upside, but I absolutely think by season's end, you're taking him out of tier 5 and you're putting him like borderline tier 3, tier 4.
Yep, that would be my first option too. I think they honestly have high expectations for him. I've said in a previous show that I think Baker Mayfield did himself a disservice by playing on that bum shoulder. It made us think he was a very poor passer. When you're underthrowing wide open receivers, like there was that viral video that, of course, Odell Beckham's father helped perpetuate where Baker's just underthrowing wide open receivers. You know why that happens? Because you don't have the arm strength because your shoulder is busted. So, you know, tough guy mentality in the NFL kind of gets the better of people sometimes. I think he is my top option there, besides the fact that we knew Deshaun Watson was playing a certain amount of games. In the games that he's playing, I would have him as a top 7 quarterback in terms of expected fantasy points.
Do you have a potential diamond in the rough?
My potential diamond in the rough, I hate myself. I'm going to need to take a shower after it, but it's Zach Wilson.
I see it. I could, yeah.
Do the thought experiment. If Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville had Breece Hall, Elijah Moore, and Garrett Wilson, how pumped would we be for this new up-and-coming receiving core? I'd say we'd be more pumped for Trevor Lawrence than we currently are now, and we'd certainly be drafting and then put Trevor Lawrence behind this Jets offense, and we'd be certainly drafting them higher than QB 24. So I think the talent pool is there. I even kind of like Michael Carter. This team has this stink of being terrible for years, but I think Wilson actually has a sneaky chance, especially with a little bit of rushing upside there as well.
How many first-round draft picks do they have on the offensive line as well?
They've just had so much draft capital spent on this offense. At a certain point, it turns the corner.
Yeah. I'm not saying all of these guys are elite, but they have 1, 2, 3, I can't pull it all up right now. Oh, hold on. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there's a lot. I think 3 first rounders on the offense. What I mean by that, and 2 of them recent, right? Mekhi Becton and Elijah Vera Tucker.
Yeah.
These are like, what if they end up being really good and staying healthy, and Zach Wilson's behind a good offensive line with plenty of time in the pocket? I think you're on to something. Zach Wilson could also suck, but that's just the way things are. Sorry, Phil, but in New York with the Jets, that's just the way things go sometimes. Generally speaking, for the past decade, all of the time. But that doesn't mean they have to be bad. They do have weapons. Eventually,
they're kind of in a shootout potential division too, right? I know the New England, notwithstanding, they're a defense running team, but Miami wants to pass and play fast. Buffalo certainly does. So, we make these AFC West arguments for shootout potential. Why not Zach Wilson, the AFC East?
Yeah, why not? Why? Phil said we got new black uniforms now. It's fine. Yeah, that'll save the day.
Good luck with that.
Look, they're at least better positioned than they've been in years.
I'd agree.
That's what we can say about them. But the offensive line, man, the unsung heroes, or the ones that get shit smeared all over their face by everybody. What other position do you have where if you're really good, nobody says anything, but if you're bad, you're the first person to blame?
It's a tough life. I guess that's why they pay him millions of dollars. I mean, that would be the
I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad for them. I'm saying, though, the casual, like if you're a casual football fan, you don't really think about that. But every single position in fantasy football, from the quarterback to the wide receivers to the tight ends to your running backs, if you're talking fantasy football, it all comes down to how well your offensive line can perform.
It really is that annoyingly simple sometimes. If you can't stay up to execute the play 3 to 4 seconds, it's never going to happen.
Imagine if Brady never played behind good offensive lines. Just imagine.
Probably never know his name.
Yeah. Anyway, fun conversation, man. What are we going to talk about next week? Get into some risky players?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
It's going to be good.
Follow Matt at Draftaholic on the Twitters. Follow me at Loughy_D, LOUGHY_D. Shout out to Phil for producing this one. Again, podcast, if you want to check it out. If you're on YouTube, you want to check it out on podcast, you can do that as well. Wherever you want, but hit us up, show us some love. We'll catch you back here next Friday. Have a good weekend.